Hey everybody, here we are, week 15. I can't believe we're this far along. Listen, today we are getting into action. Eric does a phenomenal job breaking down this chapter, so you're going to get out a lot out of it. Make sure, bust open those big books and take some notes, and we will see you next week for week 16.
All right, everybody, what's going on? It's good to be back. Let's open up this and just center ourselves with moment of silence followed by the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, last week we talked about step 4, and we made that inventory. And today we're getting into action, which is on page 72, and we're gonna do step 5 today. And so into action. This is entitled into action. It's not titled into thinking. It's not titled into discussing or into studying. It's into action. We're really going to get into some action now, right? Steps 1 and 2, those were thinking steps. We thought about our problem. We came to believe that we have the problem. Then step 2, we thought about the solution. We learned about the solution, that there is a solution. Step 3 was a decision step. We made a decision, again, a thinking step really. And then step 4, we started to get into, it was a writing step. We did a little bit of action, but today, step 5, we're really getting in to action, where this is where we really start to change. This is where we start to affect that personality change, that psychic change. And we begin to get a new attitude. And you're going to notice Bill W. never uses he doesn't like to use the same word more than once within a few pages. Okay, so you'll see it in step. We talk about getting into. We're gonna tell someone else the exact nature of our defects, right? And step. He uses in the 5th step, he uses wrongs, tells somebody the exact nature of our wrongs. In step 6, he uses the word defect. In step 7, he uses the word shortcoming, but they all mean the same. There are our faults, our mistakes, our defects. There are personality flaws. They are the things that block us off from God. That's what he's talking about when he talks about these, when he uses these 3 words. So, again, it starts on page 73. Having made a personal inventory, what shall we do about it? And right there, I'm going to stop. Bill W. always, whenever we move on in this book, he always makes the assumption that we have done the work before, right? Because these steps need to be done in order. And every time that he moves past one, his writing, the author, the way that he writes assumes that we've done the work before. And he's doing the same thing here, having made our personal inventory. And that's what we did last week. We wrote down we wrote down our resentments, we wrote down our fears, and we wrote down our sexual harms. So what shall we do about it? We've been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and discover the obstacles in our path. And new attitude is the operative word there. This whole program, I just said it, is about a spiritual experience significant enough to bring about a complete psychic change, which is an improved shift in thought and behavior. The book also calls it a personality change. We read that in the spiritual experience when we read There Is a Solution. We talked about in the spiritual experience, it talks about the personality change, sufficient enough to bring about recovery from alcoholism. And what is a personality? Well, your personality is made up of your view of the world. It's made up of your attitude. It's made up of your thoughts, your ideas, your past. And we're trying to get a whole new attitude here towards God, towards God's universe, towards my fellow man, and towards me, myself. So we've been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and discover the obstacles in our path. And those obstacles we found in when we did our 4th step, they're anger, resentment, fears, harms, guilt, shame. These are the things that are blocking us off from God. And these are the things that we are going to now identify, talk about to somebody else, and then we're going to ask God to remove these things from our lives. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which when completed will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects, our wrongs, our faults, our mistakes, our shortcomings. It's all the same thing. This brings us to the fifth step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter. This is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. We think we have done well enough admitting these things to ourselves. There is doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. Many of us thought it necessary to go much further. We will be more reconciled to discussing ourselves with another person when we see good reasons why we should do so. The best reason first. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. And for us to drink is to die. It tells us that in this book. And so when we talk about our defects here, I don't have a problem. I can sit in a meeting and I can point out everybody else's defects because there's nothing standing in between me and their defects. They're on full display for me to assess and to look at and say, okay, this, I can pick you apart. But I can't see my own defects because in between myself and my own defects is an actual lifetime of rationalization and justification. I mean, rationalizing, justifying, saying, yes, but this is why. And I've noticed this over the years, sitting with men doing fifth step in the time that I've been doing it. I can always tell when it's coming. And it's usually when somebody, I always tell us when I'm doing my fifth step, I tell my sponsor what I have written down and I leave it at that, right? Because once I start saying, okay, but there's a backstory to this, well, now here comes the justification. And I'm not looking for the backstory. I'm just looking to find out your part, your defect, where you were wrong here, right? And so it's very easy for me to see other people's defects. The reason why I have to sit down and tell this to somebody else is because I can't see mine. So I have to tell it to somebody who's not involved, who's neutral. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. Invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves, but they had not learned enough humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else all their life story. So here, people forget that if you forget something on your fourth step, that's one thing. That's something that you can remember later, and you can go back and you can tell it to your sponsor. You can tell it to somebody. We're talking here about things that we purposefully leave out. I had them. I had things that I was going to leave out, things that I was going to take to my grave that I was never going to tell another human being. My sponsor said to me, well, how free do you want to be? How free do you want to be? You better get it all out there. And I found that to be true. So when you purposefully leave something out, when you say, I'll tell this and this, and I'm going to do this, but there's anything that comes after the but is bull. You know what, right? So when they say, but I'm not telling this, that I'm keeping. That's the stuff that kills us. That's the most important stuff. Because within that, whatever that is that you're keeping, that's where the real guilt and the shame is. I have to get that stuff out. It's the most important part of this. So until we tell somebody else all their life story. So, for alcoholics, we completely live two separate lives. When we're drunk, we lie, we tell fabricated stories, we cheat, we steal, we just live this absolutely double life, and we use resentments to transfer blame for all my behavior. I did that for years. I used all those resentments that I built up over the years to transfer the blame for why I'm the way that I am. I talked about last week. I drink at those things. Like my first wife, I drank at her. And I use that stuff as an excuse. So it goes on. It says, we only thought we had lost our egoism and fear. We only thought we had humbled ourselves, but they had not learned enough humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else all their life story. So all that stuff that I'm talking about, that double life that I lead, until I tell all of that, once I tell all that to somebody, it no longer holds that power over me. That power of I can't go here because those people know. And my God, what if these people find out about how I lived and what I've done? More than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. That's the guilt and the shame. Knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. Today, for me, it has nothing to do with deserve. I've been given God's grace. Deserve has nothing to do with it. I say all the time, if I ever get what I deserve, you better not be sitting next to me because I'm getting struck down. I don't deserve anything I have today. Not by the way that I've lived my life, but today I know that there's a purpose for me, that God has a purpose for me. And that's why I have what I have today, to accomplish that purpose. So this inconsistency is made worse by the things he does on his sprees. Coming to his senses, he is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. And any alcoholic knows exactly what we're talking about here. These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think someone might have observed him. As fast as he can, he pushes these memories far inside himself. He hopes they will never see the light of day. He is under constant fear of tension that makes for more drinking. And so until I tell this stuff to another human being and get it out of me, I'm not going to change. If I'm holding on to those secrets, they're going to eat me up inside. Psychologists are inclined to agree with us. We have spent thousands of dollars for examinations. We know but few instances where we have given these doctors a fair break. We have seldom told them the whole truth, nor have we followed their advice. Unwilling to be honest with these sympathetic men, we were honest with no one else. Small wonder many in the medical profession have a low opinion of alcoholics and their chance for recovery. And so we're starting here. This is the first step 4 really, in step 5, where we're starting on a lifetime changing process. This is for the rest of our lives. But what we're changing is what we've built up over our entire life to this point. So I might have mentioned this before, but we need to make sure that we're changing the right things. And this is why I need to sit down with a sponsor when I do this stuff. Because I had no idea what I needed to change. I needed that stuff. We've talked about it in the previous chapters, how self-deception can't spot self-deception, how I can't see my character defects because what I just said, I've got a lifetime of excuses and a lifetime of rationalizing and justifying these character defects, so I can't even see them. And why I need somebody else to point them out to me, because I need to make sure that I'm changing what needs to change. And that's why I make that list, and that's why I'm about to tell my life story in step 5. When I came in here, and I probably said this because I say it all the time, but this is the truth. When I came in here, I heard things that I didn't understand that made no sense. I heard people say, well, everything needs to change. What needs to change? Everything needs to change, they'd say. And I think that's a non-answer. That's a cop-out. What do you mean everything needs to change? And then they tell me, well, people and places and things, that needs to change. Well, that's a little better, but what people, places, and things? That's still pretty vague. I do this work and I go through this book and it tells me, I'm taught exactly what needs to change. And we've already read it. It says the ideals, emotions, and attitudes that were once the driving factors in these men's lives have been cast aside, and a whole new set of ideals, emotions, and attitudes begin to dominate them. That's what needs to change. My ideals, my emotions, and my attitudes. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're simply trying to get a new attitude and see where I've been to blame for a lot of this, and I'm not just a victim. It's a whole new attitude on life. And when I say people, places, and things, when they say that to me, that sounds a lot like a geographical change, man. And we know geographical changes don't work. But if I'm changing people, places, and things, well, that sounds like a geographical change to me. If I move somewhere, I just changed people, places, and things. I still have a lot of the same people in my life. I still go to a lot of the same places that I used to. And I still do a lot of the same things that I used to. But today I have a whole new set of ideals, emotions, and attitudes towards those people, towards those places, and towards those things. And I got that by doing this work right here, and doing this fifth step and seeing myself the way the world sees me. This is where my spiritual experience and awakening began. We must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long or happily in this world. Rightly and naturally, we think well before we choose the person or persons with whom to take this intimate and confidential step. Now, today, this was 1939. They didn't have sponsors. Today, we do it with our sponsor, right? I mean, I've heard of some people that do it with a priest or do it with a spiritual advisor, but usually the whole idea was to do it with somebody who will understand. And we know our sponsors will understand. Those of us belonging to a religious denomination which requires confession must and of course will want to go to the properly appointed authority whose duty it is to receive it. Though we have no religious connection, we may still do well to talk with someone ordained by an established religion. We often find such a person quick to see and understand our problem. Of course, we sometimes encounter people who do not understand alcoholics. Again, 1939, we're so fortunate today to have this fellowship where we have people to take us through this book who've gone through it before, to take us through these steps, who understand the purpose of it. If we cannot or would rather not do this, we search our acquaintance for a closed-mouthed, understanding friend. Perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be the person. It may be one of our own family, but we cannot disclose anything to our wives or our parents which will hurt them and make them unhappy. We have no right to do that, right? And we have to be completely honest. And so this is where, right here, where, full disclosure, I work in the field of treatment, but I won't sponsor someone who's in our treatment facility because that's a conflict of interest, because this person needs to be able to tell me, my sponsee needs to be able to tell me everything without any fear of reprisal. He needs to be able to come to me and say, hey, I took kratom the other night, or I smoked a joint the other night, or I did this the other night. And he needs to be able to be completely honest with his sponsor about that without worrying about being kicked out or being sent back to a lower level of care or any type of, without having no ill effect on him. He needs to be able to be 100% honest. And this is why we don't use our wives. We don't use our parents for something like this today. We use our sponsors. It goes on and says, perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be the person. It may be one of our own family, but we cannot disclose anything to our wives or our parents which will hurt them and make them unhappy. We have no right to save our own skin at another person's expense. Such parts of our story we tell to someone who will understand yet be unaffected. And right here, this is one of the most important sentences in this chapter. The rule is, so there's a rule for this step 5. The rule is we must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others. So it's not a, hey, be easy on yourself, take it, give yourself some grace. No, God gives me the grace. I have to be hard on myself here because I'm on a fact-finding and fact-facing, that's the fearless part of it, right? Mission. It says that in this book. On a fact-facing or fact-finding, searching, and fact-facing, fearless endeavor here. I have to be hard on myself. Notwithstanding the great necessity for discussing ourselves with someone, it may be one is so situated that there is no suitable person available. If that is so, this step may be postponed. Only, however, if we hold ourselves in complete readiness to go through with it at the first opportunity. And I can't really think of any reason in today's world for this right here to be postponed like that. We say this because we are very anxious that we talk to the right person. It is important that he be able to keep a confidence, and keep a confidence means that he's going to hold that secret till the day he dies. That's not, and that's very important. I need to trust. If I'm going to tell you everything, I need to trust that that's going no further than you. That he fully understand and approve what we are driving at, that he will not try to change our plan, but we must not use this as a mere excuse to postpone it. When we decide who is to hear our story, we waste no time. That's important because now when we decide who's to hear our story, that's what happens between 4 and 5. The only thing that happens between 4 and 5, remember, after we did step 3, it said at once. We went over this. It said this could have little to no permanent effect unless at once, followed by a strenuous effort to rid ourselves of the things that have been blocking us off from the sunlight of the Spirit, which is at once do step 4 and get rid of this stuff. So that was a unit of measurement, right? At once means right now. Between step 3 and step 4, right now we're going to do this. Between step 4 and 5, we should already know who we're telling it to because that's our sponsor. Between step 4 and 5, we waste no time. We get to it. Most of the time, these two are done together, 4 and 5. We waste no time. This is really important. We have a written inventory and we are prepared for a long talk. Now, this talk that we're going to give, we're doing this. The way I do it is I do this talk through that list. I tell my story through that list because when I tell my story, what we're getting at here, it doesn't matter where I was born. It doesn't matter who my parents are. It doesn't matter, where I grew up. None of that stuff matters. This is what matters. It only matters this inventory that I've done and where I've tried to run the show and therefore hurt others and stepped on their toes. We know absolutely nothing of Bill W.'s childhood or of his parents or anything like that. It starts with our drinking and this work. So we have a written inventory and we are prepared for a long talk. We explain to our partner what we are about to do and why we have to do it. He should realize that we are engaged upon a life and death errand. Most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They will be honored by our confidence. And I have found that to be true with myself as a sponsor. Every time a man does a 5th step with me, and I believe that he's honest and fearless, I am honored that he did that with me. That he told me his life story and that he left nothing out and that he confided in me. That is an honor. It is a privilege. And I will hold that confidence till the day I die. Most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They will be honored by your confidence. So we pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. We give light. Shed light on all that dark stuff. And once we do that, it holds no power over us. And for me, this was me telling him, my sponsor, the shady stuff I've done, the stuff that I was embarrassed of that I've done, that I was never going to tell another man. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. I can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Whenever I was alone before, I was just lonely. And I was definitely not at ease. I couldn't sit by myself for 5 minutes. It says here, we can be alone. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Because I don't have that movie playing in my head. I don't have those snakes in my head. I did this. I've done that. What if they find out? I can't go there. I can't take my wife there because people there know me, the real me. I can't go there because they know the real me. Now I can go somewhere and I can say, yes, what you say is true. That was me, but not anymore. And every time I talk about it, when I do a 5th step with one of my sponsees, I tell them the worst things in my inventory, the worst. So they can know that, okay, I can tell this guy. You see the depth and the weight needed when we talk about one alcoholic to another, and we say that the book says that message must have depth and weight, that depth and weight lies in the wreckage of my past. That's where it is. It's me saying to the other man, this is who I was. This is what I did. This is how I hurt people. And this is what God did for me. This is the psychic change. This is who I am today. When we talk about a psychic change, I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was a man who lived in reckless disregard for the welfare of the people in the world around me. That's me when I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Restless, irritable, angry, hurtful, mean. Today I care about people. I'm loving, I'm kind, I'm generous. I give of myself, I give of my time. That's a personality change. That's a psychic change. That was brought about by this work. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. We begin to have a spiritual experience. And what I said earlier, this is where it began for me. When I began to see myself the way the world saw me. I didn't like the real me. I've talked to you guys before about the 3 me's. When I figured out the real one, I didn't like it. And when I saw that, when I started to change, this was it. This was the beginning. I started to feel the nearness of my Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. And I can honestly say, when I started to do this, when I walked away from this, I felt God. I felt the presence of God in my life for the first time in a very, very long time. Returning home, we find a place where we could be quiet for an hour. And now here, Bill W's given us a break. He's given us a rest. We're going to transition now from step 5 into step 6. So at the end of step 5, like I said, up to this point, it's been after 3, it's been immediately into 4, once into 4, and then we waste no time into 5. And now we've done some work, and now we get to rest for an hour. Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour. Carefully reviewing what we have done, we thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better. Taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we have omitted anything, for we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. This is it. I've started the work. When I get done with like my sponsor did with me, when I finish a 5th step with a man, I shake his hand and I say, "Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous." Because now he's got something to share. He's got an experience now of doing the work in Alcoholics Anonymous. He's no longer just a visitor sitting there listening to what we've done. He's building that arch that's going to change his life. I said earlier, we're on a lifetime changing endeavor. So we're building the arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? And so what that means is, do I believe step 1? Do I know in my bones that I'm an alcoholic, that I can never pick up a drink or a drug again or I'll have to be stopped? Do I know that? If I can say yes, then I think about step 2. Do I believe that this spiritual experience, do I believe that what I'm doing here can create a psychic change that will bring about recovery from alcoholism? Do I really believe that? And then I think about step 3, that decision I made. That's only a decision until I take some action on it, which I've done. 4 and 5. Have I left anything out? This is the time that I reflect and think, did I leave anything out of my 4-step? And listen, if it's not coming to me, then I'm fine. It's the things that come to me that are on the 4-step. Like I said the other day, once it comes to you, put down your pen, you're done. Once it stops coming, put down your pen, you're done. And then step 5, have I told him everything? Have I left anything out? Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? This is the foundation of our recovery right here, of the rest of our lives. Have we tried to make mortar without sand? If you make mortar without sand, you know what happens to the foundation? It crumbles. It crumbles. It looks like mortar, but it doesn't hold together. It might look like a solid foundation until something comes along and it caves. If we can answer to our satisfaction, then we look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable, which means absolutely necessary. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can he now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something, we will not let go. We ask God to help us be willing. We're going to end there, and we're going to pick up with that paragraph, step 6, next week. I always tell my sponsees from this point forward, it's going to move quickly. Once we get through step 4 and 5, these steps are going to go pretty quick. That's what I got for today. Tom, let's open it up.